Hi, this is Sara Levin, the Artful Inker. I'm an independent Stampin' Up! Demonstrator in the United States, and today I'm here with alternates 3 and 4 for the July 2021 Paper Pumpkin Kit, The Adventure Begins. Let's get started. For this alternative card, we're going to be using the card base that has the lantern on it. And let me bring my trimmer in. And let's trim right here on the score line. So I'm just making sure that I've got my score line in the track here. And we're just going to take that off and set this other piece aside for use another time. And then I'm going to measure this and make sure that I'm at 4, let's see, it's right at 4 1/4, so that's good. So let's set that aside for a moment, and my trimmer aside. And then I've got a piece of basic white. I don't know why I set my lantern aside. We're going to punch this piece out carefully. Okay, and then I'm going to set this piece over and just put in a few little tick marks around here, just very light on my basic white piece. Kind of lets me know where everything is. You may not be able to see those, but it's okay. So then we're going to do a little coloring, and I've got my a few of my Stampin' Blends. So let's zoom this in, and I'll set my Stampin' Blends down over here. So I'm going to start at the bottom with my coloring, and I'm using a combination of light Bermuda Bay and dark Pool Party down here. Let me turn this, and then you can still see. So I've marked where my lantern is right here, and I'm just going to color some of this in and then color over so that we get some of that same washy look of the background that the card has. And I'd like a little of this down here. Okay. And then before I get too far along, I'm going to take my Daffodil Delight. This is the dark Daffodil Delight, and I've marked where the lantern was right up here, and we're going to give some lantern light around. Okay, and then I want to come in with some of that blue along the edge as if it's bleeding into that. Okay, and we're going to continue then and stroke in a little of this Bermuda Bay and come, because our color will change a little bit and get a little darker as we move up. And then I've got my light Night of Navy and my light Evening Evergreen. Let's move this aside, and we're going to transition these colors in. Oop, I'd like the brush tip on that, not the bullet tip. So let's and just color, 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 and blend those together. And then I'm going to take that Bermuda Bay and come back across these. And we're just blending some color on here to get some of the same tone as that card front that we're going to use. And let's come in and check placement for everything here with this piece. So I need to come out on my edges a little bit further. And the first thing that I'm going to do is bring this out just a little further. And then we're going to come in with this Bermuda Bay along the edge, so that it darkens as we move out to beyond the light. And that's your pool party. And then we're going to do the same thing over here, which will give us some wiggle room. We're going to come all the way up with our Bermuda Bay. And do this blend all the way up with the light pool party. And then let's color out to our edges up here with our evening evergreen. And then the night of navy over that. And where's that pool party? Right, Bermuda Bay, sorry, over it to add a little more variation. And then let's see again how we're doing with fitting our, so that looks pretty good. Let's cap these up and move on to our next step. I'm going to give this whole thing a brush over with my color lifter. And now let that finish drying a moment and put the rest of these out of the way. Okay, now let's zoom back out. One more pinch here. There we go. Okay, so now I'm going to take this and create some little dots of light in here. And it will just lighten these spaces a little bit that I'm adding these in, just like you have going with the piece of the card. Okay, now we need to do a little bit of stamping, and I've got the banner for that came in the kit and my garden green ink. And let's just line this up on one of these grid lines and ink our sentiment here with garden green. And I'm going center-ish on here. Okay. Let's close this up and pull in our Bermuda Bay. sticking with the colors that are listed as part of the kit. And looks like I spaced these a little bit far. So we're going to go here. And here. Okay, there's our stamping. And now let's put this card together. So I've got a thick Whisper white base, and I need to bring my trimmer back in. We need to add some score lines. So our first score line is at 2 3/4. Oops, let's make sure the trimmer blade is out of the way. And then we're going to score at 5 1/2. And this base piece is 4 1/4 by 11. And let's go ahead and burnish those score lines. Make sure this one is straight as well. Okay. And then we're going to add this piece first. So I'm going to add adhesive on this piece. And I'm not coming right down to the edge with this, the bottom edge that is, but I do want to be straight. Okay. And then let's punch out these remaining pieces from this cutout. Trying to be careful so that I don't tear anything. Okay, and then it's time to add some dimensionals on this piece. Do support your lantern, which is what I'm doing first. Just thinking about where and I'm adding, I always add a lot of dimensionals, and I'm adding a few more than usual because we've got this whole center section that has no support. So we want to make sure that we give our card plenty of support. Pulling off all the backing pieces. One more here on the lantern. Okay, I'm checking to see that it's hard when it's white on white to make sure that I'm on the edge of the card down here. So I'm going to use my finger kind of as the guide to see it. Okay. Now let's go ahead and add a couple little rhinestones to this. And I'm going to cheat real quickly with my Daffodil Delight. I see I've left a little white space in here. So we're just going to real quick, carefully touch in here. Let's use the bullet end and Doesn't have to be completely colored in, but that was a little too white. Okay, so now we're going to take your pick here and take some of these smaller rhinestones. Two lined up. Let's move that so they're not so straight with each other. We'll put one over here on the darker side. Okay, let's grab our sentiment that we stamped and add some dimensionals to the back of that. Okay, and we're going to put this right here at this edge and kind of center it. And then I'm going to add some little rhinestones in here as well. Okay. And there is our first alternate, an easel card using the Adventure Begins kit. So let me set this aside and we'll make another. For the second card, I'm going to start with some basic white and a piece of scrap paper and some Blushing Bride ink, and then the evergreen stamp, and I'm just inking that in Blushing Bride, and I'm going to do that a couple of times to make sure that my stamp is well primed, because that's a lot of flat surface area. Now I'm stamping off and just stamping here and giving this a rub all over. And do that again and stamp off. And just making sure that I'm leaving time for that ink to transfer. And one more tree will fit just nicely down between these other two. Okay, let's close up my Blushing Bride ink. And then I'm going to put the needles on in Flirty Flamingo. And I've double mounted my stamp, just making sure that I'm good and inky there. And I'm going to line these up at the bottom of my tree. Oop, don't need to turn that again. Okay, and now we're done with our Flirty Flamingo. And then one more bit of stamping real quick on our card base. And I'm going to use Bermuda Bay. And I've got this stamp that's from the Textures and Frames Celebration stamp set. Now you can get that free if you purchase a 3-month prepaid subscription for Paper Pumpkin in my Stampin' Up! Store during Celebration. And you can find a link to my store in the description below. And we're just going to use that circle to stamp up here. And let's go ahead and put this in and stamp our sentiment. So I'm going to bring in my Stamparatus and put my card base in here. Let's hold it down with my magnets. I'm going to put a couple around in here to make sure that everything's going to stay in place. And then let me pop my little grid on here to make sure that my word is going to be straight when I stamp it. Okay, so I think I've got it in the right place. We're going to do a test stamp on my grid here. That looks good. So now let's ink this up for real. And that looks great. Okay, so now we're going to put this aside. Let me move this out of the way, and our stamping is finished. Next, we need to take these trees and your paper snips and cut these out. And I'm going to do that off camera and be right back. Okay, so I've got my 3 trees that I cut out with my paper snips, and we'll bring the card base back in. And this, if I didn't say, is 4 1/4 by 11, scored at 5 1/2, and it's thick whisper white. Now, while I was away, I also used my basic borders dies to cut some pieces for our card. And the first thing I did was cut a row of clouds. And let me bring in some dimensionals here and add those. Okay, and then I've used some pool party, and I've cut some mountains. And this first row of mountains are going to go flush onto the card. And if you hadn't guessed already, I'm using a non-traditional color combination. So we're just going to slide these mountains up to where those clouds look like they're scudding across the top of the mountains. Okay, and then start and use some dimensionals on these other pieces. Love this set of borders dies. They are so versatile. So I'm going to drop this one just down below the edge of the card. And then I'm going to turn this over and use my snips to trim this. And then let's do some dimensionals here. And want to bring this up just a little bit, and checking my dimensional placement for that. So these 2 out here need to be doubles. And we're, as you can see, we're just leaving a little gap along the bottom there. And I need another dimensional right in here that's not being supported. So let's just slide one. If I can get my fingers on just the edge, we'll slide one right in there. And then we're going to add this final piece right down here at the bottom. And that's going to be adhered with multi-purpose glue. And I'm seeing that it looks like this first one that I had down is just a smidge long. So I'm going to come in here and trim that smidge off. Okay. And then I want this just right here at the bottom of the card. It just adds a little more texture. Okay, and now we're going to start and add our trees. So dimensionalize the trees as well. And I'm just going to add dimensionals on the top too. Since we're layering, it'll be easier to place the next one over top of this. And I am moving this off the side of the card a little bit. So that means we're going to put it down and then again come with our snips and cut right down the side of the card. Okay, let's move those off my dimensionals. And then let's grab a newer sheet. And we're going to dimensionalize this whole tree. Oops. Thought I had one stuck to my fingernail. Let's add him back to the mix over there. Okay, and then our final tree we're just going to bring down further. And so we need a dimensional at the top, and then I'm looking to see where it makes sense to put these. I think right here. And whether that's going to be, I think I need a second one over here, since this tree is dimensionalized on the edge so that this will lay flat, straight, even, one of those words. Okay, and then the same thing, we're just going to come right in here and trim this off. And there is our second alternate for today. That's 4 that I've shared so far. I'll link back to that first video. This is for the Adventure Begins Paper Pumpkin Kit from July. You can give this video a thumbs up and share it with your card making friends. If you're in the United States, please do some of your Stampin' Up! Shopping in my store. And when you subscribe to my YouTube channel and click the bell, you'll be notified the next time I upload a video. Have a great day. Bye.